Chalice flame burning bright, symbol of my own light, light around me, light aglow, light that shines as I learn and grow.
Let This Darkness Be a Bell Tower by Rainer Maria Rilke, translated by Joanna Macy. Listen, quiet friend who has come so far. Feel how your breathing makes more space around you. Let this darkness be a bell tower and you the bell. As you ring, what batters you becomes your strength. Move back and forth into the change. What is it like, such an intensity of pain? If the drink is bitter, turn yourself to wine. In this uncontainable night, be the mystery at the crossroads of your senses, the meaning discovered there. And if the world has ceased to hear you, say to the silent earth, I flow. To the rushing water, speak, I am. May there be peace.
Someone else's life. I'm turning into concrete, harder than these city streets, where no one even cares if I'm alive. I gotta get it right. Gotta get it right. There's a place that I know where they all know me. I gotta get back now to the ones who love me. Wrap myself around you, never let you go. There's nothing in the world that feels like a place that I know where they all know me. I gotta get back now to the ones who love me. Wrap myself around you, never let you go. There's nothing in the world that feels like coming home. Home. Sleep, and not even a memory is good enough to get me through the night. I'm longing for the real thing, of people who know the real me, and all the ways to love me back to life. I gotta get it right. Get it right.
Hello, my name is Suba, and along with my co-chair, Mary Rosario, we are the Stewardship Campaign Committee for this year. You can see I'm standing here beside this mysterious little house. This little house that's been showing up in our Facebook post every week. It started out as just a flat piece of wood that we introduced during the week we were building a foundation. And now you can see it's actually surrounded by the herd. And there are some new members to the herd. They aren't even elephants. And you are saying to yourself, man, this stewardship campaign is way out there. When you compare it to the gold standard of campaigns, fundraising campaigns, the ever-dreaded NPR campaign that we have all come to know and hate, you're like, where is it all going? But I guess I like to think as a group, our group is a higher thinking group than that. So, but let me switch gears here and stay with me if you can. This charming little house, it's the brainchild of a lovely and creative young woman. The fact is, we actually had this idea months and months ago. We thought it'd be fun to set it up in the lobby, and as the weeks of the campaign unfolded, we'd actually build a real literal model of a house, and people would be able to come and bring bits and mementos. We'd all landscape it together, and at the end of the campaign, we'd have a fully formed model of a spiritual home. But then we kind of had to shelve that because, you know, we're still not in person. But then, as it turns out, Adrienne took it on herself to research model kits online. She bought one, paid for it with her own money, and has been overseeing the construction and creative process of our model home. And she's doing it to support the stewardship campaign, and I also suspect to support the hard work her mother does here with the church every week. So when she came to us at the last minute and said she was, wanted to do all this, as far as I'm concerned, the only answer to her was yes. Please bring it in. Our theme on our journey to coming home this week is integration, as in integrating individuals and family into community, into a supportive and loving congregation. Our first principle in Unitarianism is to honor the inherent worth and dignity of every person. And by doing so, by welcoming them into the herd, even if they are radically different or somewhat colorful or maybe a little obtuse. Well, isn't that the very definition of integration? Isn't that the very definition of inclusion? Isn't that how a congregation is formed? How a substantial spiritual home is truly built? I mean, isn't that what Unitarian Universalism, it really is. And for me, from my point of view, for our little church, our little liberal church located in conservative York, PA, I think we're pretty good at it in inviting and wanting all of this diversity here and wanting to integrate it into our whole community. And so for me, to send in that pledge form, that stewardship pledge form, to make sure that this keeps going and that this stays alive, I just can't think of a better reason than that. It's all the reason I actually need myself. So what I'd like to do is just take a moment and let that settle in a little bit, and maybe you can enjoy, we've got some camels now and a couple of little cats, and we've got a little jade elephant and, a nice donkey. They've all been welcomed into the herd. And what I'd like to do is just actually to switch gears one more time and go back to the NPR fundraising campaign just to get that moment in and to let you know that as of today, we're halfway through the campaign. There's 4 more weeks to go, but as of today, we have 42% of our stewardship goal met. And about 40% of the pledges are turned in, so we're kind of on track to be close to halfway there. But, don't delay. March is turning the corner on Tuesday, and the deadline is the end of March. So, just get your pledges in for us. That's it. Bye.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and from this we live.
Our reading today is an excerpt from the book Revisiting the Empowerment Controversy, Black Power and Unitarian Universalism by the Reverend Mark D. Morrison-Reed. How had the hope that filled Unitarians and Universalists in 1960 so quickly dissipated? How could this happen after they had shown such solidarity and courage in the 1965 Civil Rights Campaign in Selma, where two Unitarian Universalists, Viola Liuzzo and James Reeb, were martyred in the cause of racial justice? What of the $1 million the General Assembly had voted to commit to black concerns just 1 year earlier at its meeting in 1968? Julius Lester's book, Look Out, Whitey, Black Power's Gonna Get Your Mama, had recently come out. A rallying cry for black power that critiqued white liberalism and laid bare its underlying racism. It had a catchy title and an accurate assessment of the situation in which Unitarian Universalists found themselves as their hallowed values of individualism, pluralism, and democracy came under fire. Black power triggered the upheaval, but was not its cause. The story of the empowerment controversy is a tale of honorable people pursuing dreams of racial justice while battered by historical forces beyond their control and social circumstances not of their making. Circumstances that forced them to choose between dearly held but conflicting values. It was a collision of worldviews and loyalties in which every decision was colored by the partaker's humanity. Noble intentions alongside inflamed passions, egocentrism masquerading as activism, susceptibility to self-delusion, defensiveness, and, as tragedy requires, hubris. The members of the Black Unitarian Universalist Caucus, its white allies, contesting integrationists, and the institutional loyalists who saw themselves as fighting for the financial survival of the fledgling Unitarian Universalist Association, all misconstrued and racialized a broader range of tensions. Cultural and denominational pressures that had been mounting along several fault lines were increased by the urgency of the late 60s and then released by the cause du jour. Underlying it all were competing needs for power and control. A British Unitarian observer at the 1968 General Assembly said, "One can only hope that out of the heart-searching, the agony and tears, love and justice will emerge triumphant. Tragedy rarely leads to triumph, but perhaps wisdom can be gleaned from the pain and upheaval of those years. A wisdom that will be of use today in a new era of turmoil and polarization."
More beautiful music. Thank you for the recording, David, Diane, and Avery. What does your heart know while beholding this holy fire? Dear community, in reflecting on those words from our chalice lighting today, I think that our hearts truly know many things. They know them in harmony and in conflict, with others and within ourselves. We've already held space within this worship service for threats at home to the safety and well-being of our beloved siblings and selves in the LGBTQIA+ community. We've held space for our beloved siblings in Ukraine and in all lands experiencing war, struggle, and hardship. And for the fears both new and reawakened in so many around the globe watching conflict from afar. Today, I want to talk about some things our hearts know, gathered here as witnesses to this flame of our faith. And some of the things that our hearts know are still hard to hold space for and talk about. So please, give grace to others and give grace to yourselves. I'd like to share just a few more words from Reverend Dr. Mark Morrison-Reed's book, the one that Sherry just shared our reading from today. Thank you, Sherry. These words are how he concluded the book. I returned to church because it was my spiritual home. It was a place where I had been nurtured, and because I was nurtured, I grew. Having grown, I could give, and having given, I grew more. It was a place where in pain I could go, where having gone, I was cared for, where cared for, I could heal and go on. It was a place that was concerned with the world, and in showing me that I was connected to others, taught me to care, and that caring demanded that I act. These words resonate with me because they reflect back to me what I felt when I first found community in Unitarian Universalism. It wasn't the spiritual home of my childhood the way that it was for Reverend Morrison-Reed, but it became a place of nurture, a place where I could grow and give and bring my pain and learn to heal. Learning about how connected I am to others, to all of you, to every being on this planet, was an unsettling thing to come to in adulthood, especially when I did learn that my caring demanded that I act. Taking action to care for this world and all those in it is scary. Learning more deeply about myself, my own prejudices and hatreds, the things that I had internalized in messages from many different parts of society, these were not skills that I was taught in the faith community of my youth. I didn't have a strong sense of community when I was young. And frankly, I still have a lot of learning and growth to do about living in and being a full and accountable part of a community. It's a lifelong process of learning. This community, and I speak here both of UUCY and of Unitarian Universalism more broadly, prides itself on being a big tent of a religion. All are welcome, we say. But what does our welcome actually look like or feel like? I've called Unitarian Universalism an audacious experiment. Human communities can be such tremendously messy things, and ours is no exception. Again, smaller and larger reference for that ours. Reverend Morrison-Reed's book, Revisiting the Empowerment Controversy, Black Power and Unitarian Universalism, is a deep dive into an ugly chapter in the history of our faith tradition. It is written from a place of deep love and compassion and knowledge of human frailty, and also paints a deep and nuanced portrait of what became known as the empowerment controversy that I must now squish into a very small summary. So please, hold on, there's some history coming. Stay with me. In 1960, the American Unitarian Association and the Universalist Church of America voted to merge their liberal faith traditions into a single organization, the Unitarian Universalist Association, after having been led by their respective youth organizations who formally merged in 1953. The youth are always leading. In the decade of the 1960s, as the civil rights movement engaged the heart and soul of the nation, the newly formed UUA supported and showed up time and again. And as noted in our reading, in 1965, many people of many faiths answered the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.'s call to come to Selma, Alabama in protest and witness. And two Unitarian Universalists, Viola Liuzzo and the Reverend James Reeb, were killed while fighting injustice. The very act of showing up during the civil rights movement brought more Black Americans into Unitarian Universalist congregations, which up until that point had been overwhelmingly white, except for a few urban churches. Black Unitarian Universalists found challenges in many UU congregations. Even as they found spiritual comfort, it was hard to find community. In 1967, the Black Unitarian Universalist Caucus, BUUC, formed and presented demands to the UUA, including the creation of a Black Affairs Council and funding of $250,000 per year for 4 years, the $1 million referred to in lump in the reading. They also proposed greater representation for Black UUs in leadership and methods to alter the path to professional ministry to wipe out the severe racism in that area. Over the next few years, alliances of white supporters of BUUC and the Black Affairs Council exhorted the UUA to support these efforts. During this time, the financial status of the UUA was imperiled due to unrestricted access by leadership to the endowment fund, which was revealed to be severely depleted in 1968. In short, the UUA withdrew that promised financial support of the Black Affairs Council, which is also disaffiliated from the UUA at that time. And in 1970, the Black Affairs Council and the BUUC boycotted the annual General Assembly. No funding was restored. The relations between Black and white Unitarian Universalists were left deeply harmed and divided. Phew! Thanks for sticking with me for the history lesson. It's hard to hear, but it's important to know. Our chalice lighting this morning came from a worship designed and written and led initially by Unitarian Universalists of color. In recent years, as America has started to take another hard look at where the deep seeds of racial animus and white supremacy began in the soil and soul of this nation, Unitarian Universalism has started to hear some of the calls and cries of its members of color. People who want to fully engage their beloved faith and yet find themselves unwelcomed in our congregations again and again. The Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism, BLUU, or BLUE, organizing collective began in 2015 as a part of the larger discussions around the movement for Black lives. They often partner in their work with DRUM, diverse, revolutionary, Unitarian Universalist multicultural ministries, formed in 1997 by religious professionals of color to support one another and work for more inclusion. So here's the heart of it. All of these acronyms and history lessons aside, boy, do we love acronyms. Our beloved Black siblings have called the attention of our larger faith movement to the broken promise of the aforementioned empowerment controversy. The worship this chalice lighting came from was called the promise and the practice. The promise specifically refers to the funding which the UUA initially allocated and then rescinded. Blue shared the promise and the practice worship materials with all UU congregations as a part of a joint effort with the UUA to repay Blue with $5 million, which is the initial $1 million gift accounting for inflation from 1968. And to me, the lesson in all these acronyms and dates is this: paying attention to where we've failed, remaining undefensive and committed to learning more, and making amends and reparations. And that's not an easy road for this faith tradition to choose to take. And I'm so proud of us for trying to do the hard things, even when we fail. As our story said today, sometimes you have to stay in it. Our big tent really isn't as big or as welcoming as we might dream it to be. But our work on that is ongoing. In June of 2020, the Commission on Institutional Change issued its report, Widening the Circle of Concern, which came out of interviews conducted over 3 years with over 1,100 Unitarian Universalists of color based on their experience within our faith communities. They talked to lay people and to religious professionals. It lays out problems and suggests paths to solutions. It's hard work, but it's good work, soul work. I'm going to try and make sure we have a way to share links after this service because I'm dumping a lot of information on you today. But this report is available online. If you Google UUA, Widening the Circle, you will get the text of the entire report is available online to be read. We've been steeped in history this week. Echoes of war, reminders that none of us are free until all of us are free. And it can feel hard to sit with failure while this pain is around us. I know the personal guilt that can fill me with despair when I know I have failed, when I know that I have participated even unwittingly in the perpetuation of systems of harm. Reading the Widening the Circle report was a hard reminder for me that even in our beloved congregational communities, there are those who experience them as systems of harm. There is no perfect. One of the things I love most about Unitarian Universalism is that it does not try to say that it is the right religion or that it has all the answers. It invites us into questioning and consideration. And our principles are there to guide our consideration and our action in the world and the way we live our values. But imagine for a moment if you happen to listen to a Christian pastor give a sermon on adding to or subtracting from the 10 Commandments. That would seem impossible, unthinkable. We have our 7 principles, and there's some tendency, even within our own UUA headquarters, where the chapel was built with many design elements grouped in 7s. There's a tendency to hold that number, 7, up as sacred. But the last time that the principles and purposes, Article 2 of the bylaws of the Unitarian Universalist Association, were updated was 1987. 35 years ago might feel like ancient history, but it is not. And currently, there is another Article 2 study commission that's examining our current principles and purposes to determine if they need amending. One of the chief reasons for this review is the proposal of an 8th principle. And this proposed 8th principle has its origins right here in the Central East region of the UUA, and the first congregation to adopt it was the UU Church of the Restoration in Philadelphia. Paula Cole-Jones, the Director of Racial and Social Justice in the Joseph Priestley District, which is now just a part of the larger Central East region, worked with congregations for 15 years on racial justice issues and realized that many faithful UUs held themselves very closely to the 7 principles and still never interpreted them in any way that made them deal directly with racism, either individual or systemic. She worked with Bruce Pollock Johnson of the Church of the Reformation and numerous focus groups. They drafted the 8th principle, and it was worked on and adopted by that congregation in 2017. This is recent history. We are looking at our own past, we are looking at ourselves, and we are trying to make changes. Many individual congregations, more than 50, I think, as of last year, and I'm not sure what the current count is, have chosen to incorporate this principle into their congregation's statement of our values and beliefs. And I would like to share the proposed 8th principle with you today. You, the members of the Unitarian Universalist Congregation of York, are the ones who may choose to learn more and to begin conversations around what this might look like. if the congregation wants to do study and consider adopting this principle. It's very timely work, and I hope you will consider me a resource and ally and a guide as you may choose to enter on the path of this work. I know this congregation has done anti-racism work very specifically in the recent past. Please open your heart to the truth within this principle, even though it, as this sermon, has a whole bunch of words. We, the member congregations of the Unitarian Universalist Association, covenant to affirm and promote, journeying toward spiritual wholeness by working to build a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other oppressions in ourselves and our institutions. This is a bold statement of faith. It's full of hope and of challenge. And I hope that today's history lesson has shown you that it's right and good for this faith tradition to take up both this hope and this challenge and to join in the larger dream of a world where all are free. I invite you to hold this in your heart as we hear the powerful draw the circle wide.
Sadness and in your grief, from the pain it seems there's no relief. We will hold you until the storm subsides. We'll draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone. We are side by side. No one is alone. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle wide, draw it wider still. Draw a circle wide, draw it wider still. Let this be our song. No one is alone. We are side by side. No one is alone. Draw the circle wide. Draw the circle.
Your circle wide, your circle wide, kiddo, numbers. Your circle wide, your circle wide, your circle wide, your circle wide, your circle wide.
Amen.
We extinguish the chalice here, so that it might glow gently in our hearts. May it light your path as you leave this place. May it guide your way until we are together again.
Thank you all for sticking with it. As I say each week, our worship has ended. May our service begin. Go with peace in your hearts. Go with a curiosity and an openness to change, and to a courage to dream for bigger things, brighter things in the world than what we may see immediately before us. So may it be.